Hey there, Cincinnati soccer talkers. It is good to be back after a work week in Buffalo. I missed being on this show last week, really did. And I learned something also about myself. If you are ever feeling dissatisfied or stagnant with anything in your life, go spend 1 week, a work week preferably, in Buffalo, bouncing between a conference center and a hotel room, and it will bring a whole lot of perspective back to your life. Speaking of reflection, this past week, FC Cincinnati also had to take a hard look at themselves in the mirror and decide what team they were going to be after dropping points to Orlando and then going down 2-0 to Philadelphia. The orange and the blue left halftime with jeers. I think Philadelphia fans were chanting, "You're overrated," taunting them as they went into the tunnel. Had to be tough coming from a team that dominated the first half of the season, getting dumped on like that. So if you wonder why Brandon Vasquez and Boup were fired up and throwing kisses at the crowd after the second goal, you now know why they answered the call. And I personally am hoping that is one of the moments that restarts a fire under this team as they close out the second half of the season. That match was action packed, and it's going to light a fire under this show tonight. So we got to get the crew in here to talk about it. We will start with Jason. Welcome into the show.
Thanks for having me. And I can second the Buffalo remark. When I worked at Xavier in athletics there, I spent 4 days in February at the Atlantic 10 Swimming Championships, which were inexplicably held in Buffalo in February. So it is not a great place to be in the middle of winter.
No, I'm glad it was still nice and warm and not too bad. You could still walk places, so that made it a little bit more enjoyable, I guess. But no, February, I don't know how you did that. Would you at least catch like a football game or something?
No. The Bills, I mean, it's February because the Bills season was over. Yeah. I don't even think the Sabres were in town for those few days I was there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I tried to throw you some kind of bone there. All right, we'll go with Mr. Weigel. Covered for me last week. We appreciate it. The guest host you all can rely on when I don't show up.
FC Cincinnati Jeopardy, and the guy who knew the least won. So it's amazing what happens. Love you, Rob. Congrats, buddy. Glad to be back. Not in the host chair. Can rest my voice after a whole weekend of coaching. So, woohoo.
Yeah, good to have you again. Thank you for filling it. I actually hate being away. I really do. I like being on the show. I think it's one of the more fun things we do.
Kana loved it.
I don't know. I was gone too. Away from the fam as well. All right, Brian, number 2, back in action. Welcome on the show.
Back in action. Hey, yeah, it's good to be back again. Listen, Brian, I watched the show last week, and I'll be honest, I was really nervous. I wanted to be on, and I just couldn't do it, so I had to watch later when I heard you were doing trivia, and I was like, oh, whew. Good thing I didn't do it. But I think I knew all but one of those questions. And I was just like, oh, wish I could have won. I wish I could have been on this week. But anyway, yeah, I just want to say that I will take the blame for the first half, at least partial blame of the first half this last week. I was riding in the car, watching the game on my phone, not wearing any FCC gear. As soon as I got home and changed, we turned things around at halftime. So I'll take partial blame for this last week.
Yeah, poo on you, Brian. God, just awful.
Sorry, guys.
I say the same thing when I watch FCC games or Bengals games in my living room here on the big 80-inch TV.
Mm-hmm.
Never win a damn game. So I turned it off at halftime, went upstairs, and lo and behold, turned it around. So
there you go.
We got the mojo going, pal.
That's how trivia works. Anytime you're not at trivia, you do great.
That's right.
And then, so like people will ask me for help. Like, come on down. We already have a team at the local bar or whatever. You can join. I'm like, guys, gonna suck. I tell you, there's only one trivia I brocked, and it was How I Met Your Mother trivia a couple years ago. I got deep into that show, deep down the rabbit hole. So,
oh man,
I
wanted there to be a red wedding situation in the last season of that show so bad.
There we go. Changing the podcast.
There might be one other thing I could ever win trivia on besides FCC: West Wing.
Okay.
Good old Aaron Sorkin.
Okay. Did you come up with those questions last week on your own, Brian?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
That's the one thing about being actually one of the very few people that have knowledge of the USL days. I can come up with half decent questions.
Right on. Those were great.
You know,
This might be real. Go ahead.
I said people still don't know like the names. Like there's a lot of new fans here, and I'm all on board for having them. But there's a lot of people who don't know who Adrian Regaton is. You know, and they're like Danny Koenig. Like I mean, there's like diehards that know Danny, but like man.
Mm. There's probably a lot of people that can relate to this out in our audience because FC Cincinnati has hosted trivia a couple times. And so one time, I think about last year, they held an FC Cincinnati trivia in the First Financial Club. And I was like, oh, this will be cool. I'll go to that. We go 3 FC Cincinnati questions. They just hired a trivia company and they just like threw in a couple FCC questions. It was mainly sports trivia. So they started asking like golf questions, hockey questions, and keep in mind, like everybody in there is a soccer nerd. So we're like, you can ask us how many majors Tiger won. We don't know. We don't know. None of us knew. So the team that won, a team of interns that work for FC Cincinnati.
No,
Rigged.
You guys want to know a stumper out there? If you guys ever get into a curling trivia league, got to call Nick Suberling. He's a ringer.
Wow, never saw that coming.
Curling trivia league.
Is Nick our inside, like our curling insider?
You guys didn't know Nick Suberling's like semi-pro curler.
Really?
Yeah,
Man.
I've always
go
wanted
ask
to
him
try
about this.
curling.
Northern Ohio gets weird.
Hey,
He's
it
from
gets cold
Toledo.
up there, you know.
Well, our show tonight, as every night, is brought to you by Apollo Home. They have an August back-to-school special for you still, and they're offering a $38 cooling and heating tune-up special. Just go ahead and get that checked out. We're entering fall. It's about time. I don't actually have no idea if my heater's going to turn on, so it'd probably be a good idea for me to get them out here and check it out. Last couple years, it's been a struggle that first flip on. So we'll what?
I mean, I think you need to get your air conditioning checked out because we're about to get into like 85, 86 degree weather here this week in Boston.
Yeah, no, every year it immediately tanks.
Fourth summer.
The least expected. All right, I've seen people in chat already throwing it out there, best and worst, so we might as well go there first. Brian, with a Y, you're up.
So I've seen a lot of slander out there by Matt Miazga, and yes, he did not have a great game. First half, we'll say first half, okay? But my best of the week is you got, and I know Jason's going to have something to say about this, you got what you knew you're going to get from Miazga. We gave up a screamer, low percentage chance. Yes, you gave up a over-the-top ball penalty. Could things have done better? But the dude was... This game called for somebody to be an asshole like Miazga and get chirping and stand up to the other team. And we've been asking for this for 5 years. We need a bonehead to mix it up with the other team. And Matt Miazga was that guy. Yes, could he have kept his composure as a captain should do more often? Probably. But guys, that was a rock fight. They wanted our soul. They wanted to reclaim that best of the East. And we didn't give it to him. Arias was there, Miazga was there, and I love that energy. Okay, and we'll say some negative things about that later, but that was my best of the week was that we still had somebody to, somebody popped FC, Miazga would pop him back. So bravo to you. I know Matt, you've got a lot of crap this week, so I love you. Worst kind of cancels out my best a little bit here, but people were dogging the ref. But the teams acted that way. They put him in those bad situations. So while I would rather see a beautiful game, the teams were at fault here in this whole mentality of the ref having to give cards and Mascara getting that dumb first yellow. It's like, the ref told him 18 times back off, and they wouldn't freaking listen. So we're just as much to blame as the ref was. So that's my worst of the week.
But you have to kind of like a match like that, right, Brian? Like
no,
I do. I like a little feistiness.
That's why it was my worst of the week. I like a little feistiness, but not what the hell we saw this week. It's like embarrassing. Like, okay, it was the stereotypical why certain subsections of the United States hate soccer, and that match lived up to it. There's a lot of beauty in it too, but God. It was just ugly.
Did you follow all the rules in school? I feel like you followed all the rules.
Well, so before I turned like junior year in high school, I was like 4'0", redhead twin. So you had to be buddies with the hall monitor, or else lockers.
Now you're just what, a 5'7" redhead twin.
Oh man.
5 foot. I'm taller than you, dude.
I know I'm 5'8",
5'11".
so I'm not that tall.
5'11", like we're gonna, you see me. I'm thrown right now. I'm gonna bring up my buddy Clay Winstead. Like, you saw this guy for years on here, and then you actually see him in real life, and you're like, holy crap, you're 6'3".
Yeah. I don't give off that vibe. I look short in all situations.
I mean, that chair's taller than you. Look at your screen. My God.
It's got a high back, man. It's my gaming chair.
Yeah, I'm coming for you now, bud.
All right, Jason, you get a shot before Brian.
There's no
fires
way you're 5'11". You are taller than me, but not by that much.
I am. I think I declare like 5'10" on my ID. So it just depends. I got these awesome new shoes, Hoka's, that like give me another 2 inches. So shut it.
Like the politicians who wear cowboy boots just to make themselves look taller. My worst of the week was Matt Miazga.
Beetlejuice.
Good. A little counteraction.
Yeah. He did. The first goal for Philadelphia was really, I don't know if it was on Miazga or Mosquera for not closing out, but that was a real boneheaded decision by the defense not closing that one out. But whatever, you're going to give up a screamer every now and then. My issue gets back to what Brian said about his worst. If you're going to be stepping up as captain, part of your job is to take some of that flack from your players and to get in there and get them out of situations which can hurt your team in the long run. Lucho, who is shorter than me, to his credit, is willing to get up in between guys, get guys out of the referee's way, get them to go cool down, because if you don't do that, you have a situation like you have now where Mosquera is out on Wednesday. He is a guy who is, as much as I like him, he's apt to do a boneheaded play every now and then and get himself a dumb card. That is the job of a captain. And I know that this is a thing that the players vote on, but Miazga needs to kind of check his attitude a little bit if he's going to be in a captain's situation. So that's my worst. My best of the week, however, is Aaron Boupendza. We had guys, there's been a lot of justified kind of criticism of Boupendza in his role as a striker, as a DP. You're wanting him to come in and make an immediate impact. And he scored 5 goals in 8 games or something like that, which I think is a pretty good clip. But for him to only come in for 40 minutes and to have such an impact on the game, where he not only scored, but he got an assist. He was all over the place.
Best player on the field.
Best player on the field by far. And the team was entirely different once he got on the pitch. So that's my best of the week. And hopefully, we can see it continue with him and Lucho and Brandon up top, getting that trio working together.
Man, I got some good questions for you later, Jason. All right, Brian, before we bring our guest in, we'll throw it to you.
Yeah, my best was just grinding out a dirty win on the road and doing it without our captain, Lucho, him watching from the sideline. I thought Vasquez played well as well. I think, he wasn't in top form like we've seen him before, but he was in on both goals, playing the ball through to Kubo on the first one and then finishing off the second one. So, I think it was an ugly game. That was my worst. Just the decision-making with cards were flying early, right? And I think referees do that to take control of games that look like they're going to get out of hand, and they just continued to fly. And I think put it on Miazga, put it on any player on the field, put it on, Mosquera for the stupid play on the first one. We just poor decision making all around. That was my worst.
I could not more staunchly disagree with you guys. If you're down 2 goals, I loved that game. I loved the cards. I loved the aggression. I loved the fight back. Now, if we lost and took all those yellow cards, then sure, that's a bad game. but we didn't lose and we fought back. And so we'll talk about that later. But man, I just couldn't disagree with the three of you more on that. All right, we're gonna bring Tyler in. Tyler Terrens, our awesome guest, stopping by from Apple TV MLS Season Pass. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come in here. And did you catch any of that by chance? I know you were busy, but did you catch any of that Philly Cincinnati match we're talking about here? It was a rough one.
I agree with you though. I mean, like, I'm a neutral, so I just get to enjoy the fact that game was just totally unhinged and drunk and spent way too much time on Broadway in Philly. But yeah, I mean, I thought the game was amazing, and the way that you guys battled back, and typically teams who engage with Philly in those types of street fights end up without anything. And the fact that you guys got a point without Lucho, Mosquera getting sent off, I think is a credit to you guys and sort of a reminder to everybody why you're supporter shield leaders at this point in the season. But glad to be here. And I agree with you. I disagree with these guys. I thought the ugliness of the game, I thought, was like the coolest part. And I think that the part that you guys should be the most proud of, because even when it is ugly and without your captain and you're arguably MVP leader right now, you were still able to get a point on the road.
It's something that I was going to bring up later in the show, but I think the depth and the quality of the depth that FC Cincinnati has, bringing a Kubo on, bringing a Murphy on, Boupendza should be a starter, and Santos and Baji should be your backups, but still being able to bring in all these different options off the bench, where you saw as soon as Philadelphia had to get into their bench, their production fell way, way off. So, you've seen Cincinnati. We spoke with you several times earlier this year. What are you most excited to see out of this group going through the last 6 matches?
I think it's what you guys were just talking about at the end of that little segment there, and it's the trio of Acosta, Boupendza, and Vasquez, right? And how good can they actually be? Because I think that type of goal for Brandon was exactly what he needed. It just needed to go in and off of his shin, his elbow, whatever, just for him to get off the schneid and to get back onto the score sheet. So now it's a matter of, like, when you get Lucho back and Boupendza coming back from international duty, Vasquez back on the score sheet, like, how good can this trio be that obviously with Brenner a year removed was one of the best attacking trios that MLS has seen in quite some time. So, like, Philly have their guys in Gazdagua and Carranza, and to be able to have 3 guys who are constantly producing on the goal and assist category and being able to see what that looks like. And because I think that Pat's group has proven time and time again that you guys can win ugly games like that, but I want to see FC Cincinnati get back to the ways of, like, punishing teams and putting them away early. You guys should have had a goal or 2 against Orlando City. Devin Kerr and I were on the call for that game, and I thought you should have put one away and maybe put Orlando under some pressure. But Orlando's been, Dragon Slayers as of late, so you have to tip your cap. But you guys have proven that you can get clean sheets and do it the ugly way. I want to see, the free-flowing Acosta at his best, Vasquez and Boupendza just punishing teams, and you guys flexing heading into the postseason and showing everybody why you guys are the best team in MLS.
You mentioned Orlando there. They've kind of risen up in the ranks and the standings. What have you seen out of this Eastern Conference, and maybe who is your top 4? I guess 2 through 5, since Cincinnati is pretty high up there in the standings.
Yeah, I think that Orlando's such an interesting one. And Devin and I, like, regardless of what city that we're in, typically Friday night we're going out and we're having a couple of drinks. And Orlando always finds its way into the conversation. And we're still trying to figure out exactly what they are. But here they are in second place in the Supporter Shield standings and only 8 points behind you guys. If you go back to before their win against St. Louis, which was on the front end of the 3-game week that they had before they beat you guys, they had only beaten 2 playoff teams, and they were really inconsistent, and we just didn't know what they were. Now, fast forward like 2 weeks later, and they're one of the best. They're one of the hottest teams in the league right now, and they don't have any huge superstar names. They got rid of their DP striker, who they were paying $2 million. Duncan McGuire is now their star striker, or I should say, their starting striker. So Orlando's a really interesting one, and I'm not sure what to make of them as far. And they're obviously a very good team, and their style travels, and they have the best road record in Major League Soccer. It's identical to their home record, which is like unheard of at 7-3-4. But then you take a look at New England, and with everything that's going on behind the scenes there, and you saw a bit of the proof in the pudding in terms of, like, the distraction and maybe coming off of this weekend's result. Philly's obviously one of the best teams, but I would honestly say that, like, my 2 through 5, I would say right now are Orlando, Philly, and then like a combination of Columbus and Atlanta. Atlanta are fun again, and their summer transfer window signings have done really well, and they punished Miami without Messi after getting off to a slow start. And then Columbus is just reckless abandon, and you guys know, like they're willing to score 4 or 5 goals and play out of the back or die trying. And if you caught any of that game against Orlando, just set up shop and shut it down. I mean, you're up 3-1 on the road, and they just couldn't help themselves. And I don't know if that was by design from Wilfred Nancy or what, but
Yeah.
but your rivals are like they could end up winning MLS Cup, or they could get bounced in the first round. I really don't know.
Yeah, if we play Columbus, I really want it to be here because we play them a lot better at home than we do at their place. I noticed the two that you didn't mention that you probably would have in the first half of the season are Nashville and in New England. And New England, of course, sits in third. Do you think with being coachless now, they will fall out of the top 4?
I think it's a possibility that they can fall in the top 4, but I also am familiar with some of the personalities that exist within that locker room, and they're like some of the comments that have come out of there like are really, really true in terms of like the level of professionalism, the guys who are leading the team, and the guys who are responsible for sort of making sure that this thing sticks together, because everything that's happening, push it aside for a second. There's too much talent on this team for this season to go to waste, and that's up to the players to sort of make sure that the glue holds for now. I don't think that they still could fall out, though. I mean, just given the way that Philadelphia is playing, the way that Atlanta is playing, and then I didn't mention Nashville just because like of form as of late, if we're talking like power rankings. But Devin and I talked about this all the time again, and they were another team that always crept into it. Like they are the team that's capable of beating anyone. And even as a 6 seed, they could potentially get to MLS Cup. I would love to see you guys take them on again. I saw that Nashville-Cincy game, the crazy one where Boupendza scored his first goal and, the red cards and everything like that. I saw that as a fan. And I thought that would like, if you guys played them in the first round, I don't know if it would get to that, but like that would be a great best of 3 series from a neutral standpoint between you guys and Nashville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about earlier. The Eastern Conference is just so tight, especially around that playoff line. I have no idea when it gets down to like the Montreals, the DCs, Chicago, Charlotte, what is going to happen. You theoretically have Inter Miami, but their loss definitely takes a sting to their chances, I think, overall. But it is still insanely tight in that window, and I'm kind of. I mean, even the Nashvilles have to be careful. They don't fall too far.
What's your guys' consensus as to whether or not Miami's going to make the playoffs? What's the group's feeling?
As the number 1 seed, we really don't want it to happen.
I think there is a vow among some FC Cincinnati fans not to mention that team. Yeah. Okay. And I'm kind of sticking with that. They don't exist to me right now.
I brought it up on a podcast. I was just like, is Pat Noonan having a conversation with Chris Albright and maybe throwing the number 1 seed away so that you don't have to play Miami in the first round? I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, does the Supporter Shield really?
How unfair? How unfair would that be? Think about it. Like you work all season to get a number 1 seed, and it's supposed to be a reward.
Don't put that evil out there, Boston.
Be a reward.
No, it is a punishment of the highest order to be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference.
They're going to have at least another year or two of some title contention. So just give them some time. I mean, here's the thing. Miami still have to play. They have to go to Orlando. They play us. So, I mean, they have to win at least 5 of their next 7 league matches. So, I mean, the teams that they play are not world beaters. They play Charlotte, Chicago, New York outside, and Toronto. So I think it's possible, but I mean, Messi's carrying a lot of baggage on those legs right now, too.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I want to beat him at home.
Though. Yeah. The way Cincinnati played him in the Open Cup, I'll be honest, I'm not as scared as Miami as maybe I was. I think Cincinnati has proven they can hold their own. Now, it's obviously going to be a knockout, drag out. But we didn't see Messi run all over FC Cincinnati. In fact, I think FCC was the first team to keep him off the board entirely, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
Yeah, it was Busquets and a couple other players that probably performed a little bit better in that match. So if it comes down to it, I'm going to enjoy the best of 3, and it's going to be fun to watch.
As a top seed, I hate it. I'm so pissed. I want home matches.
You should hate it.
I hate it so much.
Yeah.
Maybe the final, but I hate this.
But both of you guys were running on fumes in that Open Cup game, and like I think that we just didn't see the best from either group, right? I thought you guys should have scored 17 goals. I thought Miami looked awful and probably the worst that they did up until this Atlanta game without Messi, but probably the worst that they've looked with him. And I would love to see best out of three, you guys having that amount of time. Although Miami would have to play on that Wednesday in the play-in game, so they would be carrying a little bit of an extra load. But as we've seen for them, that doesn't matter a ton once they get into these knockout situations. But nevertheless, we can wait. We can wait until late October for that.
It is wild. I don't want to make this a Miami podcast, but I mean, Messi's going to come back from international duty, play a midweek versus Charlotte, then play Saturday versus Charlotte, and then play a Wednesday game. So I mean, it's insane what they're going to have to do with that 2-week stretch.
Well, before we even get to the playoffs, though, we do have a game coming up on Wednesday against Montreal.
Don't look ahead, right?
Yeah, and we haven't played them since May. It seems like forever ago. But whenever FC Cincinnati and Montreal play, it tends to be a bonkers game. What do you foresee maybe happening Wednesday night? What are some maybe keys for FCC or keys for Montreal if they want to come away with a victory?
Yeah, and I actually just got done watching some of the Montreal-Chicago game, and Montreal should have scored 9 goals. Chris Brady stood on his head, and Montreal just created chance after chance. And it was just one of those ones where I think that Montreal is going to be coming off that game, having another home game, and they're going to be pissed off above all else, which I don't think is great for you guys, but. I mean, listen, this is a group that I think has been wildly inconsistent under Hernan Lozada. They do have some talent. Picking up Opoku was definitely a key addition in terms of trying to bolster the attack, but they've gone some long stretches this year without scoring goals, man. Yeah. So if your back line can hold up, and I'll tell you what, Ian Murphy getting the reps that he got last year and then getting the reps that he got during Open Cup and when Mosquera was hurt, and Kubo getting those minutes and Halsey getting those minutes, like all of the depth that you guys are talking about has been bred from opportunity. And these are the types of nights on the road, north of the border, midweek, where that's really going to come into play. And Pat's obviously been great with his substitutions, and they're not mind-boggling substitutions, right? Like it was the same thing with the Atlanta game, bringing on Santi and bringing on Junior Moreno, who I have like a man crush on him from a soccer standpoint. He does all the little things, man. So like all of this said, I think it's going to take a complete performance on the road like it typically does in this league if you do want to get 3 points. But as long as you guys can deal with some of the way that they press and the way that they like to get after you, which you guys are more than capable of doing, I don't think that this should be all too complicated. They're not a huge threat in front of goal. And if you can capitalize on a chance or two after Brandon getting on the score sheet, I think you guys should be okay. They are a team that's flirting with the playoffs, and that place has been packed as of late. And if they score an early goal and that crowd gets behind it, it's going to turn to one of those bonkers games that you guys are talking about.
Absolutely.
I think on the flip side, this is the window for FC Cincinnati to make the move. You finished Orlando, you finished Philly, like on the standings side of things, the tough stretch is over. You've got Montreal, Charlotte, who you're calling the game this Saturday for, right? And then, if I'm not mistaken, then you got Toronto, New York Red Bulls. So it's 4 teams that are at the bottom of the standings. If you're gonna seal the deal, if you're gonna get that number 1 spot and stave Orlando off, this is the window. So even though you're away at Montreal, I think by the time you get to Charlotte, theoretically, FC Cincinnati, if they were able to get a 6-point week, they could lock it up. They need some help, but they could theoretically lock it up. Not to steal your thunder for later on down the road, but
so when you come into, have you been to Cincinnati already this year? Have you visited?
A bunch.
So So when you come in this weekend, what is the weekend for you when you come into Cincinnati? Any places you want to hit up before the match, or
Funny enough, I'm actually not on the call this weekend.
No,
and I hate to break the news. And if you want to, like the guy who's on the call,
you just blew up our entire rundown. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, but well, the funny thing is like the wires got crossed in terms of schedule and everything like that. And the PR guy for the league was just sort of like, well, and I said to him, I was just like, it's not a problem at all. Like I've seen Cincinnati like 7 times this year.
Right.
Like I feel like they're one of.
We're used to having you.
Yeah, I love the city of Cincinnati. So as far as my day, and I've spent a lot of time there recently, just because of the way that my schedule has worked out, and things like that. And I have some friends in the area. But I went to Pep and Dolores for the first time, which was fantastic. Oh my God. And let me tell you what, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey. And I do have some tendencies where I'm like New York and the tri-state area, the center of the universe, and that's where the center of gravity is. But I have had just a fantastic time. I do have one confession to make. And I heard this is not really a thing, but Devin and I just sort of were having an itch to hit the blackjack table. We did go to the casino before the Friday night before the Orlando game.
That's Boston's favorite place.
But we told a couple of people that, and they literally looked at us. They're like, "You guys are gross. Why would you go there?" Like, we didn't realize that it was sort of like I was talking to my friend who's lived in Cincinnati for 10 years, and she was like, "Yeah, like I've never gone there before in my life, and I wouldn't go there."
That casino is great because like Ohio has a smoking ban indoors, so unlike other casinos, in Atlantic City or whatever, it doesn't smell bad in there.
Yeah. I will say this. Finley Market, Devin and I have gone on a couple of mandates there a few times. And I've gone back there and I get the same exact sandwich every time. And it is so good. And the vibes in there, and everybody's wearing FC Cincinnati gear. Like we go there typically Saturday afternoon before we head to the stadium. And I just get a great pregame energy and Bailey vibes when I'm walking in there and having a sandwich in Finley Market. So that's been one of our go-to spots. Yeah.
Yeah, that area is really, really special. By the way, I'm so cheap that I will park at that casino every match and walk all the way across downtown because I refuse to pay to park. And that's the beautiful thing about casinos. The parking is always free. So
how far of a walk is that?
About a mile. Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not terrible. Yeah. But and you get to cut through like some of the best parts of Cincinnati, I think. Some of the best streets and bars and the restaurants and everything. So
Austin, you're the cheapest rich guy I know.
I don't even know
that
what
does
that
bring
means.
up a interesting
We'll be
question.
watching for that license plate this week now.
Sorry to bogart the interview, but I am kind of curious since, with Apple TV, you kind of have this pool of announcers and color commentators and stuff. When do you find out where you're going? Do you know at the beginning of the year? You mentioned lines got crossed, or do you maybe just know 2 weeks, a week in advance?
So it really, not to get too far into the weeds on this, but it really does vary given the month. So Leagues Cup, right? It's a tournament, and certain people live in certain places, and people's got families and things to do, and so they were trying to accommodate everybody and everything. And Leagues Cup was, you were finding out 72 hours before you were supposed to be and it's a tournament. It's fine. Everybody came into it and was sort of okay, this is the way that it's going to be. But with league play, we have our schedule through decision day now. So that's really nice to be able to know exactly where I'm going to be October 21st. Obviously playoffs are TBD. But it's it really depends. There have been some months where we've gotten chunks of 2 weeks, 3 weeks in advance. So we'll get a game here, a game there. Can you work this? Yes. Great. Okay. And then we get another 2 games 2 weeks later. It really does depend. And so, yeah, it's just been an adjustment. And I think that from a scheduling standpoint, that's one of the things that when you're thinking about launching basically a network on a platform that you don't own, which is what MLS is doing, there are going to be certain things that are going to look better in year 2, year 3, year 4. And that, I assume, is going to be one of them. But even though it's been last minute and kind of spur of the moment sometimes, for the most part, we have a pretty good heads up in terms of where we're supposed to be, because we have to watch these games and we have to do our homework and make sure that, you're trying to sound as educated as Tommy G when you're speaking upon FC Cincinnati, right? That's the gold standard for the orange and blue. So those are the moments where you're trying to just make sure you're getting ahead of your prep work.
Yeah, no, that's a good take. And I think even our local radio personalities and everybody are having to get in gear, especially as the team takes off and has had just an amazing season. Tyler, we appreciate you being on. We'll let you go. We thank you for your time, and Always great to have you on, even if you're not doing the game this week. And by the way, maybe you just force your way in. Just force your way in so you can come back here.
I would love to
trade whoever has the game. And
well, I don't want to bump anybody, but if I can get back to Findlay Market for some sandwiches and make some of the money back that I lost at the casino, then I think for everybody. But thank you for having me, guys, and really like your type of podcast and what you guys do helps us immensely, or at least the ones who are listening. Like, it helps me get into the brain of an FC Cincinnati fan, which helps me prepare once I'm calling the game at TQL in terms of how you guys are viewing your team every given week. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing what you do, because it makes my prep work in my life so much easier and helps me understand how you guys are feeling as fans. So thank you, and appreciate you having me.
Thanks.
Thanks for stopping by again. We really do appreciate it as well. All right, Brian called this next segment. What happened in Philly? That's a good shout out, Brian. What did happen in Philly? 11 cards is what happened. I know that. I saw the referee goes, "You get a card and you get a card." You know who didn't get a card? Somebody else. Somebody mentioned this at the show. Who didn't get a card for FC Cincinnati?
Obi.
Obi Woboto. How on earth did that happen?
He just sat back and watched. Is this what I look like?
He's playing too far an advanced role, so yeah.
Was it 11 or 12?
I don't even know anymore.
It was like one or two shy from a record, I believe.
Yeah, I think the record they said was 13. I thought we were one off of that in this match.
You
and
might be right.
the record was like a long held record. It was going way back. I think like early 2000s or something.
I mean, we're
probably
all about
depends
getting really close to records this season.
All right, so I'm counting.
Do you count
1,
mascaras
2,
as
3,
two
4,
yellows,
5,
or
6,
just-
7, 8, 9,
They're 10.
10, 11, 12. So you had Miazga. So yeah, well, it's 10, but you have to count Mascara and Elliott's.
Yeah.
So because Miazga, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 12. Wild. Jack Elliott and both him and Yerson Mascara sent off.
Yeah, they did their best to get us to the record. Thanks, both of you, for your contributions.
And both of Yerson's yellow cards were just. Ugh.
Where are you going with this?
I think they were dumb for him. They were dumb
Yes.
mistakes by him.
Yeah,
They were clear yellows. I'm not one to defend the refs, but that second one was just dumb.
The second one, yes. Yes. The first one, I kind of mentioned earlier. He was doing stuff that he probably shouldn't have been doing, but yeah, just wild. And you see Brandon Vasquez, like Yerson's like, "Oh, it's not a foul," and Brandon Vasquez is like, "What are you thinking?" Like you can read his mouth. What are you thinking right now? 2. And I'm like, oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're gonna lose guys this stretch, and I don't ever want to lose Mascara, and I don't want to lose Miazga. But if I'm Pat Noonan, I'm kind of like, hey, Matt, if you want to take your, 8th yellow on Wednesday night and miss home versus Charlotte, I'm not gonna hate you.
Yeah, the same way, missing Mascara at Montreal. We should be able to survive that. We really should.
Sure.
Right? Will we get a point or lose that match? Sure, that's possible as well. But technically, just the way FC Cincinnati's played this year, we theoretically Ian Murphy should be able to hold off Montreal on paper. I don't want to jinx anything, of course.
Ian Murphy's not bad. He also gets into that Yerson Mascara, makes dumb mistakes to get his second yellow of the game. So he's still a young kid, but you see him in these matches, and he's been a game changer. When he keeps his head, he's very athletic. He's very good at winning the ball.
Yeah.
When he's at his best, he's maybe not a top caliber MLS center back, but many teams would like to have him on their roster, especially for his salary hit.
So if we talk about that game and the turnaround for FC Cincinnati, the first thing that immediately happens, right, is the 2 subs. And I think both of them were impactful. Now, Boup's easy to talk about, so we're going to skip that for a second. But Murphy for Hagland to change the pace of that defense, I think was overlooked, honestly. I think the announcers mentioned it just for a second, but how important was it to get Hagland out of that game? I mean, you had guys on yellow cards. You could have picked any of the 3 of them. You could have picked Miazga and got him out of there.
I think I questioned that move at first because I think Hags had some good last second reach out his foot plays, knocking the ball away from attacking defenders that maybe he wasn't keeping up with. I don't know. But the way Murphy came in, I think his distribution, I'll take his distribution over Hags every day. So I think that definitely helped when we're playing the ball out of the back there too. So I think it was a good move. I questioned it at first, but with Hags on a yellow, I think we needed to do that.
The play that happened in the first 5 minutes of the second half where Murphy had to bust his butt to get down there and catch a guy. And I remember just thinking to myself, well, sheesh, that may not have happened still this game. I mean, granted, I think the positions changed a little bit, but still. I was breathing a sigh of relief at that play because if Philly scores a third goal, I don't care what kind of
you kind of have to look at the tactics and the strategy that Nuno wants to play, or even what Curtin was trying to do. We were getting stagnant in the final third, and when we turned the ball over, you'd have acres of space behind our attacking group midfielders to that defense, and having pacey wingbacks like the Union do, you take advantage of Nick Hagelin. So I think it's a great move putting Mascara in over there. He was put on Wagner then, I think?
Yeah, I believe so.
So yeah, it's a good move. I mean, Nick's not bad. Like, again, there's all these people like, oh, Nick's a jabroni and let's throw him away. Same thing with the whole thing with Dom Baji and Sergio Santos. Hey guys, guess what? One of those two is going to be on this roster next year, and it ain't Dom Baji. So I know there's a lot of funny things said about definitive things said about people right now, but it's all about situations. And I'm going to jump to points. Sergio Santos in a game where you're nervous about holding possession, you want to get our guys into space. He's the right move, and Union were fine, conceding possession to us and getting into that final third and not having Lucho Acosta. And Sergio Santos is ineffective and useless in that situation, where Dom Baji is probably a little bit more useful. Of course, Boupendza, our Lord and Savior this week. Thank you. But it's not like these guys are bad, and that's what I'm hating to see all these takes. Like, oh, Santos is crap. Put in Baji. Same thing with Hagelin. It's all situational, and we have the depth to be able to make these changes, which we've never ever had, and it's made me appreciate this season in this group more. And the fact that we're going to be losing half these guys next year because we can't pay them, and we're going to have to move on with some of them.
Yeah. So anybody watch? You guys watched on television on Apple TV and MLS Plus. Jim Curtin gave a nod to Hagelin for MLS Defender of the Year. Did you catch that?
No,
I did not see that.
I was curious if I heard that right. They were talking about Miazga up for Defensive Player of the Year, and they said, but if you ask Jim Curtin, he said no one's played better than Hags this season. So I was shocked by that comment. I didn't know if I heard that wrong or if you guys caught that as well.
I mean, I think you could make an argument that Hagelin is having his best season as FC Cincinnati player.
I would say the guy won him an MLS Cup.
I remember him an MLS Cup winner, but as an FCC player, and part of that is the team itself is just better, and he's not getting left out on an island as much. Mm-hmm. But I think he's been, he'd be starting for 90% of the league right now.
In 3-back situations, not in 2-back situations.
Well, no, but who plays 2-back situations?
2 center-back situations.
Yeah. But I think he's had his best season as part of this team.
Yeah, so Clifford Adams had the comment on Facebook that what I heard Curtin said, I can't name 10 better defenders than Nick Hagelin in this league.
That's
I did hear it correctly. Yeah, that's
Jim Curtin knows his stuff. This is not some sleaze coach we've never heard of. Like
hashtag Hagelin to USMNT.
I am surprised because we get down on Hags for any mistake he may. If he takes one wrong step, we'll jump on Hagelin. So, but we're so close to it, right? So it's interesting seeing a guy who watches the film and just goes, "Wow, we're gonna have a tough time breaking down this guy."
I mean, he likes skylines, so he's number one in all of our hearts.
He's from Cincinnati. He's the local guy.
I think we're jaded. How about this? Are we jaded because we've seen Hagman play on our team during the bad years, and so we associate Hagelin for he was around when we weren't good. So if he's so great, then why were we so bad? Whereas you see somebody like Mascara and Miazga come in, and then now we've got a good, decent team back there. Was he a good piece in a bad puzzle?
He's a great piece for his cap hit.
I think part of that is when he came on board in the inaugural season, he was getting paid a lot more than what some people thought he should have. I mean, I'm no expert, but like, I think there was some criticism of that. Plus,
He gave up a ton for him.
they gave up a ton for him. Plus, the team was just so bad. And outside Hagelin and Kubo are the only two that are really left after the Dutch years. So,
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Zico Bailey.
yeah. So, like, I think some of that stink kind of got on him, and people maybe held on to that a little bit. But like I said, he's really turned it on this year. And I don't know if that's him because he is a very good player, or if it's just that the team around him is so much better.
I'll let the price tag go. When you keep a guy this long, the price you paid to acquire him doesn't matter as much anymore, in my opinion. Is there anything to that?
Right. I agree.
He sells a lot of shirts.
He does sell a lot of shirts.
He does a good job on the Jumbotron stuff that he does too.
Oh, and he thinks he's the only one that guaranteed will walk around the stadium and thank the fans after the game, no matter what, no matter how bad it is. I do appreciate that. One guy that FC Cincinnati fans don't have a bad opinion on most of the time is Roman Celentano, but he might have made his first boo-boo this week, his first big boo-boo. I think that's the first time I've seen him take a PK call, and it might have been a goal anyway. And if it is one of those situations, I actually don't mind if the goalkeeper takes a PK because
listen, I was a goalkeeper myself, and that's the right play every time. Every time you make the player, if he's going to get by, think he's going to get by you, you make him pay the price for it, even if you have to take a penalty for it.
Was the only reason that he did not get a red was because I think the striker kicked it, got a shot off before he tackled him.
You can't get a red in that situation anymore, as far as I'm aware. You can't.
No, that happened a few weeks ago though, where they had, I think, it wasn't with FC Cincinnati, but it was in the league against St. Louis. I think I think the goalkeeper just wiped somebody out, and
if they call it dangerous, like clear and dangerous, maybe you can still get a red, but you're not supposed to in the general sense because they just said it. Giving somebody a PK and taking the other team down to 10 men is just too much of a punishment. So they started to make that double jeopardy rule.
And it wasn't malicious. He didn't go cleats up on him. He went and made a play for the ball, got him with his arm as he came through. I mean, at that point, the striker needs to get out the way, I think. Protect your goalkeeper.
I do like, if you're going to do it, I do like that he didn't score. Like he stopped the goal from happening. So essentially there had to have been two shots on goal to make that goal happen. And so
almost made the save. Yeah. So close.
It was a great shot though. That's a hard to save one. You get it right in that corner. What are you going to do? Okay. We already talked about the halftime subs, but Brian mentioned FC Cincinnati being the deepest team in the East. I'm not sure I'm on that wagon with you.
Well, then
Brian.
You're crazy and wrong. How many teams are bringing on guys on the reg that are making $1 million? Like, I mean, you're talking about Yuya Kubo coming on, who's fringe DP guy. You're talking about Sergio Santos. You're talking about Don Baji. You're talking about midfielder Angulo. You're talking about Ian Murphy. I mean, you have so many levers to pull. And you see a team like the Philadelphia Union, who unfortunately lost Jose Martinez to injury or something there, and they bring on a guy, and lose all control of the game. And we've seen this time and time again. When we go deep into games, that's when we ratchet up things. If we're still like locked in, like you saw it versus Atlanta, you saw it, or Atlanta, whatever it was. I mean, we're able to pull those levers, and even without Lucho this past week, we're still able to do a lot of things to influence the game that other teams just can't do. I mean, they're bringing on 3 Malik Pintos. I love Malik Pinto, but it's a huge difference bringing on the young guys versus what we were able to bring in. And in a playoff situation, I know people are like, oh, Cincinnati might not be able to win the cup. Man, in that tight 3-game window and bringing on these guys, man, I really do like our chances. I really do.
Early on in the season, right, we had to bring Lucho in to save a point against Chicago.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And as deep as we are in the season against a very good Philadelphia team,
very good team,
we go down 2-0 and we continue to grind it out without him and still bring home a point. I do think there's something to the depth that we have out there. Are we the deepest team? I don't know, but I'll take what we have.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of Miami, I just don't know who else. I really don't know.
Miami's not that deep outside of the money players.
Yeah, what's his face? The forward. He's not even starting anymore. But yeah,
Martinez.
They still got a considerable amount. I mean, you're even looking, and Tyler said it earlier, guys that were finding out how good they are with opportunities and having, who thought Malik Pinto was going to be great. I mean, we all thought Kimi Ordonez was going to be the guy, and he's not there. But guys like Brett Halsey showed up, and now we loan out Isaiah Foster. And he's good. Halsey's very good. So, yeah, I think we're very, very favorable. I'm very excited for this playoff run. That's going to cost Boston a ton of money. Everybody got those emails today about season tickets?
I've not talked to my wife about that.
Yeah, if we have a deep run, my poor wallet.
I do think I remember talking on a previous podcast with Noonan playing the kids, letting some of the young guys get out there and get some time. I think he's been really smart about getting those younger players some time so that when they're called upon in situations like this, that they've got some legs under them, they've got some experience, and they know what they're doing a little bit more.
Yeah, like Angulo, I think, is a prime example of that. I think he's really matured since coming on board. And I think part of that might just be getting used to a new place and a new team. But when he first showed up, I don't think he really acted like he knew what he was doing. But now when he comes on the pitch, I'm not that worried anymore.
I don't feel like he made a forward pass in 2 or 3 matches. He always went backwards early on.
Yeah. Let's be real. I'm still not like overall thrilled with Angulo, but he's better. And there's moments when he gets forward that he's a little bit more dynamic. And I mean, but I still want OB and Junior there every game.
Oh yeah.
Yep. But getting a guy like Angulo used to the league from the outside, this is the year, this is the season you want to do it, because there's in my opinion, there's a really good chance they're paying a lot of money for him. He clearly has skill. They're paying for him to have a good second year. I think is more likely than not.
Yeah.
It could just be a Brenner situation where it just takes a little bit of time to get used to and fire it up. But part of the reason FC Cincinnati came out, actually, let's be honest, the biggest reason FC Cincinnati comes back against Philadelphia is Aaron Boupendza. And I got an interesting one, Jason. This is kind of back at you because of your comments at the top of the show. I've seen a lot of talk about how well Boup played without Acosta because he had the freedom and the movement to play.
Don't do this.
Is Acosta hurting Boupendza's game?
I mean, I don't think so, but I see people's point. I mean, he had more time on the ball. He had more time to create. But that's Lucho's job when he's on the pitch. He's the point guard. Things run through him. And so I can see why people are saying that. I hope that Lucho watched it and went, okay, now maybe I see what this guy is wanting from me. And I don't know if Lucho speaks French, or Boup speaks Spanish, or they both speak English enough to communicate. Maybe it's that problem too. But no, I think it's just growing pains with those two to get on the same page. But yeah, I see people's point. He did look really good now that he had a lot more room to create and move with the ball.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, he flourished in just a half. He flourished, filling the gaps when Kubo would evacuate them. And I don't know how. I'm with you. I just don't know how that translates to the Lucho game. Lucho's just such in command.
I think it takes time though to get in sync with a player like Lucho because he floats so much. Where's he going to be? Where's he at? Where's the ball coming from? I'm hopeful, right, along with the rest of Cincinnati, that the two of them click, like he did with Brenner. But I do think, when you're used to being the man on the pitch, like Boupendza is, that can get the ball anywhere, can do what he does with it, can make those passes across the middle, like he did to Vasquez. You're more dependent on a player like Lucho to put those balls in, and you're supposed to be on the other end of them. So I do think it just takes time getting used to Lucho's movements.
Boupendza has a goal or goal creation every 83 minutes. That's outstanding. And I've been going against my twin brother on this since a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Boupendza is going to be fine, folks. He's going to get there. And it's not happening in spurts. It's not happening in 3 a game. It's happening spread out. And that's great things for FCC.
Mm-hmm.
What encourages me about the Philadelphia match, though, is I think we saw for the first time it wasn't just a random goal. It was we saw how he likes to play, and I think Noonan might be able to channel that, in my opinion. Now that we've seen him flourish, I mean, he really did. He was either the goal scorer or the assist in that match, and then he even had a few more
Several
great
other,
opportunities. Yep. Yeah,
and I really liked the back and forth between him and Vasquez too, because that first goal, Vasquez plays it to Kubo, and then Kubo got loose and was able to get it to Boupendza. And then on the second goal, obviously Boupendza got it to Vasquez with a really good heads-up play. I think that's really important too, because when Brenner was here, that is something that he and Vasquez were able to do together. They were able to communicate a little better in that position. So maybe this is hopefully a learning experience for the two of them.
I also wonder too, both of those goals came from the left side, right? Which is where Lucho and Barreal tend to occupy space. But when Boupendza can get there, maybe there's something to the free-flowing play up top that, obviously Lucho wasn't involved in that. Barreal was back defending because they were breakout goals, right? So maybe there's something to getting him free up top on the left side of the pitch that we need to find ways to do.
Yeah.
No, that's a good shout. All right, last little question of this segment, and it'll be a quickie. Just Yuyo Kubo, I think at the beginning of the season, if I would have asked you guys, would you re-sign him? There was some hesitation. There's some questions. After watching a game where he can slot in and fill Acosta's spot, will you re-sign Kubo? Brian, I want all three of you just to really quick go through this.
For 2/3 of his current wage, yes. I'm a ruthless general manager.
I re-sign him. I think there's a lot of upside to him. He's versatile.
Same as Brian. He does a great job, but you can find a player that does just as good a job for less money in MLS.
All right.
Get like a Matan kind of guy. Somebody like that.
It's been here a while now. Longer than I thought. So.
Hey, I've thought he was going to be one of those all-time busts when he first came in here, and he's completely changed my mind.
Well, that's good. All right, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Beyond Exercise. CSTers, you've totally heard about them by now. Well, they moved. You may have seen a gap in our mention of them, and that's because they are opening a new 6,500 square foot facility in Madisonville. Mark your calendars for the very special open house Friday, October 13th, 5:30 to 7:30. They are going to be providing the same great services and even more out of the new location. A new ACL injury prevention program. They piloted a program with Nick Hagland and Brandon Vasquez the past couple off seasons, and they're going to expand on that at this new location. So if that interests you, head on up to Madisonville here this October and identify all the factors you need for a great session at Beyond Exercise. We appreciate their sponsorship as always. As well, you can, if you have any feedback you want to throw our way, you can get in touch, tweet us at Cincinnati Soccer Talk or email us at feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com. And we appreciate that and all of our sponsors. By the way, Growler Cup playoffs started this week. 2-2. Just want to brag real quick. I predicted a 2-2 game, FC Cincinnati, Philadelphia Union. So guess who is riding up there in first place? I think Jeff Tebbets did as well. So shout out to all our supporters that are on Patreon that throw a little bit of money to keep the CST train chugging. Playoffs are in full session, and so don't forget to throw in your votes for Montreal. I think that's already up. The pick is already up for Montreal. You can click on the link on Patreon and go ahead and predict that match. CSTers, it's in your Slack, so if you want to jump in there. All right. U.S. women's team. We want to talk a little U.S. women coming to Cincinnati?
We are Cincinnati Soccer Talk.
I know. I'm going to dump Montreal.
I'm just so sad. I'm just so sad Rose isn't going to be able to play.
That really takes a little bit of the magic out of it for me. I hate to say that because you still got cool things like what Ertz's last performance, and there's still really, really cool things about this match, but Rose not playing in Cincinnati?
She's going to be training here, but so I don't know if y'all heard, Boston is announcing their 2022 NWSL team, or 2026 NWSL team tomorrow, and I'm just waiting for that announcement for Cincinnati. That's all I got to say. We're hungry. We love the women here. Love seeing the supporters groups organize the TIFO paintings for this upcoming week. Talk to, like, I coach a co-ed team, and a bunch of the parents of the girls are going, or the girls and the parents are going, and I just love seeing that they can look up to those players like that, and I really wish we could have it a little bit more consistent on a week by week basis versus once or twice a year. NWSL to Cincinnati.
I would be here for it.
Yeah, so Boston is learning how to use his mouse right now.
Yeah, I thought Boston had a team. Wasn't there the Boston Breakers? Rose played for Boston.
There was. They went out of. Well, they were folded.
Yeah.
With several other teams, but
if your team folds, you should have to wait.
No, Utah's back. Got a Royals jersey in the closet over here. It is interesting that the Boston NWSL team is going to be coming back. Good for them, and playing probably in the city of Boston before the New England Revolution ever do.
No, so that's part of the deal. They're talking about 2026 having a new MLS stadium. So
I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah, it's all part of their public funding for their MLS bid too.
That timeline's really
wild,
tight, Brian. How are you gonna
3
get
years? Come on, Cincinnati could do it. 2.5. Come on. No, it's kind of cool this game. I don't know if Megan Rapinoe is going to play or not, but her and Julie Ertz, it's their two farewell matches. So Ertz, her final matches in Cincinnati this week, and then Rapinoe's is in Chicago. So there's a ton of history, a changing of the guard going down in this match. So it is very special that we can take part in these moments, and this is what we all signed up for when we supported FC Cincinnati early, and we won the MLS bid because it would bring a stadium that could host these events, and we can all celebrate the sport. And it's just a continued vision of our club and the supporters that we have here. I'm unfortunately not going. I'm running training, so my assistant coach and his daughters can go. But I mean, it's super exciting to have it here. I'm gonna be tuning in to watch the game and hope more and hope for more growth. Honestly, I want the growth of soccer in Cincinnati, and I think the women's game is just as important as the men's game here.
You mentioned Rose Lavelle, but Aubrey Kingsbury.
Yes. Yep.
Local
Goalie.
gal, going to be playing as well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm not holding my breath as the backup keeper, but you
She's a
think
goalkeeper,
maybe
She might get a run out. You never know.
Is she still at DC? I know she was at DC. I can't remember.
Oh shoot, no, is she? I didn't think so. Hold on.
It may not be anymore, but
Brian makes a good point. I was having an argument, as I'm wont to do, with somebody who is not a soccer fan, and they're one of those people.
Yes, she is DC. Yes, sir.
That one of those people that still exists that for some reason hate soccer, and they really just despise TQL Stadium for some reason. But this person, it was a he, was saying, they only have 16 games a year or whatever, and I was like, no, dude, you got tournaments plus the women's team and the men's national team. They come to the city 2 or 3 times a year. So yeah, 100%. We're getting more people downtown enjoying soccer in the Queen City. I'm not going to knock that at all.
My bank account begs to differ on the 16 games a year. It's like, what are you doing to me? And then we're going to launch into probably three or at least 4 playoff games. So
boo-hoo. You were the one to choose. You chose the seats that you have.
How could you ever root? You're rooting against your team right now, Boston. What is this?
I'm not rooting against them.
You don't like it? Go get a Bailey's ticket.
Painful.
And
it's painful. I'm the cheapest.
You've seen what happens when Joe Burrow plays on the road. Come on now, bud. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh, Josh Sabers, bring back the Dirty River Derby Women Edition.
Oh yeah.
Say that last word.
It doesn't have to be the women. Just bring it back, and it's the same deal. It's amazing. I'd love
Dirty
to see
River
it.
what?
Derby, not Derby.
How is it spelled?
Jason loves picking a fight, man.
I know.
I'm gonna make sure to put money on the Kentucky Derby next year.
All right, what city do you live in?
I live in Harrison.
No, it's Harrison. It's Harrison.
No.
Yes.
I don't know what that.
Remember when Todd Frazier
set
won
you
the
up and
home
I
run
got
derby
I got you.
in Great American Ballpark?
Boston, we've gone off the rails, man.
I know. Although these are the 2 guys that were like, "Oh, Philly wasn't. They should be nicer, not have as many yellow cards." And now look at them fighting. So
I just like picking fights with Brian because he's the only one who really reacts to me. So I gotta do something.
I was looking for something yellow, Boston. I got nothing.
Shut up.
Hold on.
That's a desk there? Did you see that?
Oh man,
I didn't know. This whole time we've done this show for years. I didn't know
Yellow
Brian
guitar pick.
folded out.
I have yellow red cards in here from American Outlaws somewhere.
All right, you missed your window. Too late. We're moving on to the final thoughts.
I got something else for you.
We're gonna go to the Brian with the cool.
Since you're so
background.
English.
Yeah. Hey, my final thought. I just wanted to give a shout out to my boy Jack Zeiger, who has played with my son's club team. Just made the move to Indy 11's academy team. As a goalkeeper for I believe their U15 team. Will be playing in Cincinnati against FCC's academy team this weekend. So shout out to Jack. Had an opportunity to coach him when he was younger. Love the kid. He's tough, man. He's tough.
That's really cool.
That is cool. He only got to where he is today because you coached him.
I'd like to think so, but
All right, Jason, we'll move it over to you.
Oh man. Yeah, if you haven't checked the email, check the email on your season tickets. Hopefully we all have a nice big hit to our wallets come October, November, and early December. But remember, you have to opt out. And if you do opt out, I question your fandom.
Why would anyone do that? You could even if you can't make it, just sell it. Half of Cincinnati's going to want to go to those games.
The Cincinnati Soccer Dog does not condone the selling of secondhand tickets for a profit.
I'm at a loss for words for what just happened there.
I'm just saying. Just never opt out. It's a bad move. Period. There's just
Well,
no.
unless you're an Atlanta United season ticket holder and spend $2,000 on tickets to not see Messi.
Oh.
That would have hurt.
Yeah.
That would hurt.
All right, Brian.
No, I just it's exciting, and I want to say that seasons like this are going to be more the norm, and I don't think they ever are when you're a league leader like this, running away from the competition. It's special. So just keep appreciating it. It's an amazing ride. I don't know if we'll ever see it again, especially with rule changes coming up, but just show up, and keep cheering.
Mm-hmm. We'll see it again.
I mean, I hope so. But
the
Oh,
rule
my
changes, though, mean we can spend as much as we want on any player we want, right? Like,
Yeah.
I heard
in
we
Miami.
get to spend, Apple's money too, and maybe Adidas.
That could work out for us.
All I'm saying is, what American Financial Group, step up. $50 million sponsorship deal. Come on, Western and Southern's doing for tennis. Might as well do it for soccer. Come on.
Brian brings a good point. I think we're young enough. I think we're young enough. We'll see. Even if it takes 20 years, I've seen Cincinnati, you'll be back on number one again. Yeah. I don't even think it'll take that long, to be honest with you. There's parity in this league, so you never know what's going to happen year to year, which is the cool thing about it.
Hey, Columbus has won 2 MLS Cups. We can do anything.
That's right. Eastern Conference, though, getting tougher. It used to be the Western Conference that had all the power, and the tides are changing.
Flips.
Yeah.
Hey,
It flips.
Seattle Sounders are rebranding apparently, so it might shift back. You never know. Just watch.
Here's my final thought. It's time for Major League Soccer teams to go full grass fields. We're starting to see some movement in the NFL world, and I think we see the day that Atlanta and Seattle and the teams we never in a million years thought would have grass fields, they could have some grass fields, and all it took was Aaron Rodgers breaking his ankle off. So maybe that's the price that had to be paid for MLS players to get grass fields all around the league. But seriously, if you're going to be signing more Messi type players, Busquets or whoever, let's just grassify the league. That's my random final thought for the day. We appreciate you tuning into Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We know we went long. We hope you don't mind. That's an extra 13 to 15 minutes. You get to a little bonus action of CST. But this was a fun game, and this was a fun show. So had a blast. Hope you did too. We will see you next week. We got a whole Montreal and Charlotte thing to talk about, so it'll be fun.